after last week's test and getting a recap on that one, and then all the stuff that they were saying in chat, in
I
testing
am
chat,
off
like,
now, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday.
oh, nice.
What do I work? And I don't work. No, wait, where is it? Where's Monday? And I don't work till 12 on Monday, 12:30. Ooh boy. Well, that's it. I am now ready as far as work goes for CitizenCon.
Very good.
I haven't said like, hey,
So, latest server meshing development news, and we've got, as you can see, if you can look close, you can see there's quite a few tabs up here. I snagged a whole bunch of things that Benoit and one that Wikipedia said in chat, as well as a few little other supporting things that you might find a little bit interesting regarding the latest developments for server meshing. Blizzard says, I've been getting notified that they're banning them too, but I doubt that actually achieves much. Yep, you just have to be, keep holding the line. Keep holding the line. So, server meshing test D after action report. This was the third in this series of server meshing tests. What they called test A was the one back in April, I think it was. The first one that they did outside of Evo. And this is if you want to get more caught up on this news, check out the previous episode of the podcast where Naz and I take a look at all the sort of summation from test B and C, as well as test A from Benoit. A lot of really great information, so go check that out if you haven't seen that as well. Or you can just go to that episode and look at the show notes, which I always post in the description. This is over on YouTube.
Part of the crew.
Part of the ship.
Part of the crew. Part of the ship. Part of the crew. Part of the ship. Part of the crew. Part of the ship.
Thank you for the follow, Thick Wizzy. Really appreciate the support. Thanks for joining us. But yeah, over on my YouTube, you can check that out. You can read these things for yourself. Naz and I cite everything. And if we don't have a citation, we're going to let you know. And this is from Balt CIG, which is Benoit. Benoit is the Chief Technical Officer for CIG, previously the Chief Technical Officer from Turbulent before the merger. So he says, hello, everyone. Back with a...
I think it's technically technology officer.
Oh, yeah, technology officer, not technical. Yeah.
Yes.
He's technically an officer. Technically a chief officer.
That's great.
Yeah. Back with another server meshing test D post-action report directly from the server meshing strike team. Meshing test D was conducted on October 2nd. Actually, this one I was. This is the second one from this round that I was able to get in on. I wasn't able to make the 1,000 player portion, but I was watching people stream it, and then I got to come on about an hour into the four server 500 person configuration. So, conducted on October 2nd, the test primarily included some important optimizations to how the hybrid service processes and fans out entity updates to connected clients and servers. This is an optimization opportunity that was observed in previous tests C. So, and they'd been telling us after test C that, hey, we found a whole bunch of things that we're able to optimize, and we're expecting really big performance improvements, and boy, did they deliver. And this is one of those things where unless you know what to look for, you're probably going to not think that it's a big improvement. But if you know what to look for from test B through C through D, the improvement is orders of magnitude. For context, in test B, the desync was measured in minutes to tens of minutes. And so you didn't see players move, and like I was on that and I accidentally crashed my ship, but I didn't know I did it, and the server didn't update me until like 12 minutes later. That's how bad it was. There was the interaction delay, you couldn't even call it delay. It was so bad. But they learned from that one that the replication message queue that they developed after the test in April fixed the problem that they had with the first round of tests in April, which was essentially a blocker. They couldn't go forward with that problem. Fix the problem, but it allowed them to see where they needed to go to make optimizations. And so from that test, they made a bunch of optimizations, and which got us to test C. And then test C gave them, you were able to see, like with test C, the desync was still noticeable, but it was like a degraded server on live. And the interaction delay was measured in seconds instead of minutes. So like obviously still not good enough for live, because if you're waiting for multiple seconds for something to respond to you interacting with it, it's too long. But that's an order of magnitude better, going from minutes to seconds. And then going from test C to test D, I experienced almost no desync. It was pretty much non-existent. The only desync was intermittent players, and a lot of that could probably be attributed to people playing outside of their region, or people with poor connections. It was no different than any other game I've ever played that was released, and the interaction delay was not there. It was as good, if not better, than live.
They do only run these tests on US and EU.
Yeah.
So no Australia and no Asia servers. So, and if anyone wants to connect to the preview channel, they have to run on faraway regions.
Yeah. Yeah, I very well could have been seeing people from Australia or Asia or something like that, because I'm in the U.S. And the U.S. servers are on the East Coast, so that's the other thing. If somebody is playing from Australia or Asia and they're connected to an American East Coast server, it takes a long time for the updates to get from them, to the replication layer, and then the server, and then back out to me, in the mountain time zone here in the U.S. But even then, like it was barely noticeable. Yeah, West Coast is best from AU. West Coast, best coast. And the interaction delay wasn't even a thing. Like my server performance was in the teens to 20s the entire time. My ping in the previous tests, you had pretty serious ping spikes, and my ping stayed 80 to 100, which is normal for me, because I'm connecting to an East Coast server the entire time. No ping spikes, not a single one. And then the other thing that I noticed was the NPCs and how much they were moving around and doing things. I saw NPCs getting onto trams, NPCs walking around and talking and stuff. It was not like a live server at all. It was better. And we'll get to why that's really encouraging here in a little bit. The test primarily included some important optimizations to how the hybrid service processes and fans out entity updates to connected clients and servers. This is an optimization opportunity that was observed in previous test C. The test also included a crash fix on the hybrid related to quantum jumps. There was an intermittent crash in test C where people, when they quantum jumped, it would cause a crash on the hybrid, which would essentially causes a 30K for everybody on the server. But a 30K where you get disconnected, like the old school 30K. While the test did not go as well as we wanted, mainly because of a fast reproducing crash at high player counts, this was on the 1K player, 1,000 player, 6 server configuration, we were still able to make important observations. The same gameplay observation from test C carryover. So Naz, if you want to continue.
You gotta move, cat. Cut. Move. Nope. You're in the way now. All right, there we go.
No kidding.
All right. Also, one thing I did want to mention, that before they started this test, Previously, they were shooting for, trying to get 1,000 players to work. They had mentioned that it was possible that they take this test to 2,000 players or 2,500 players. I forget which the number was. So that kind of like shows their confidence in the testing. We did not make it there for reasons I'm pretty sure will be stated. So new observations in test D. Okay, bye. The optimizations we were verifying in this test were confirmed as working. No more large stalls in the entity updates. This delivered major performance to the hybrid even at 900 plus players. Very encouraging. A crash in the hybrid at high concurrency prevented the test from being more valuable or testing at even higher player counts, which they really wanted to do. Which kind of validates a lot of people saying they might be actually aiming for 1,000 players for 4.0. But where it ever lands, like even if they're aiming for 1,000 players or 100 players or 500 players, where it will land will be determined by what kind of performance they can get out of the entire system. If it's
What
not performant
the
at
performance,
500,
but also what the game can handle, and that.
well,
So here's the thing is, and on that first point, the performance to even the hybrid at 900 plus players, that was the crazy thing is I was watching people stream it, and I was like, oh my god! Before the crash, before it started crashing, I was like, holy crap! Look at how good this is.
Yeah.
And then when I got on and played at 500 players, it was the same performance. Like that, there was almost the same. The only difference was the crashing. But then the crash, I didn't crash once, and I was playing on the tech preview for over an hour at least. And I didn't hear of anybody having crashes at the lower numbers. So it's very unique to that high player count.
Yep.
But the thing with it, and this is a misnomer, and it's due to people don't understand how server meshing works. They think it's just, add more servers, add more people. And it's not that simple. We are connected to the replication layer, and the replication layer connects all the people who are on the servers that the replication layer is connected to. So when they say 6 servers and 1,000 people, those 6 servers and those 1,000 people are all connected via the replication layer. It's here, let me pull up the image so you can see it. Hold on, I have it. Nope, not that one. I'm gonna pull up the image from their CitizenCon.
while you're doing that, so I said something about saving your money for Star Citizen later. It will always be better later. I would like as I recommend, like always jump into, and that might even be PC stuff. But I'll just go ahead and do the spiel anyway. I always recommend if you're unsure if you'll like Star Citizen, wait for a free fly. They happen at least 4 times a year.
The ones that are very reliable are IAE in November, which starts the Friday before Thanksgiving, and then Invictus, which is is it the second or third Friday of May that it starts? I forget which. I want to say it's the third. One or the other, yeah. And you'll know because it'll be all over the website. All you have to do is keep an eye out.
Yeah. And don't spend any more than you absolutely want to. You can buy the game for just $45 for now. I say for now because after 1.0, I highly doubt it's gonna be that cheap. And you don't have to spend $1 more. You can buy everything else in game. Plus, there's lots of events they're doing for free stuff now. So, go ahead.
So this is an image I pulled from their presentation at, was it 2022 or 2021? I forget. But this is sort of an image that gives you an idea of how things are configured in a basic sense. Here's the replication layer, and the replication layer just takes all the updates from everybody that's connected and passes them off to whoever needs to know. So when a connected client, and this is essentially a shard right here. And so we have 5 servers that are all connected to one replication layer, and an individual replication layer is called a replicant. And then we have all the players who are on that shard. And don't worry about how many it is. It's just however many that is. And then within that shard, you have a connection to the entity graph database, which is where the long-term storage of the status of every entity in the game is stored and constantly updated. And so the servers are simulating the game universe and updating those changes to the simulation, via physics calculations and all that other stuff to the replication layer, which goes to the clients, the players who need to see those changes, as well as things that need to get updated within the game to the longer term persistence on the entity graph. And with player moves around, or player shoots a gun or something like that, that information is sent to the replication layer and to the servers that need to know that information based off where the player is. And it also gets passed out to players who are within essentially view of that. So they get those updates. So when everybody's like, oh, they're going for 1,000 players, well, you have to realize that, even though the replication layer may be able to handle that many connected clients, you have to worry about that many people, or an appreciable percentage of that many, say 800 out of 1,000 people, all congregating on one server in the game. And even though, now, worst case scenario, they congregate on one server and that server happens to be responsible for, I don't know, like, all the space stations. Well, if they're responsible for all the space stations and 800 people are on space stations, then you have one server doing all the physics calculations for every single one of those people running around and doing shit. Or if they're, on a planet, or something like that, or they're in an area of space, for Xenothreat or Blockade Runner. And so even though the game itself and all the entities within the game shard, the game universe are being, spread across, the responsibility for those are being spread across these servers. And this server only has a quarter, a fifth of those, of those entities that it has to be responsible for. That's doing entity updates isn't the only thing that is taxing on servers, and physics calculations are hugely taxing. And so if you have a huge portion of the shard is on one server, this server is going to get bogged down with this server trying to update everything based off of, okay, this person did this and this laser is flying this way, and this ship turned in this direction at this speed, blah blah blah. And so Morph did a good job in doing a test to see what, and it isn't even absolute concentration, but significant concentration. Instead of having a pretty even dispersion, he wanted to see what would happen with significant concentration. Now, obviously, if he had been able to do that test on this test, it would have been a lot better than on the previous tests. But even on the previous tests, like, you saw people moving about and doing things. The bigger issues were client side. And the fact that we've got a lot of legacy armor and gear that has very high poly counts and doesn't have a level of details out to farther distance, and so it really makes your client chug. Along with the UI elements that don't scale down, and we don't have org tools. So you see your party markers for all 150 people in your party. Those are the sorts of things that will really make your client performance hurt, which hurts your game experience. But those are also edge cases. Those are things that wouldn't prevent CIG from going live with 4.0 because they wouldn't happen very often, especially if they don't go for 1,000 people, they keep it at a more manageable level. If they only have 4 servers and 500 people, well, even if they, had a large concentration of that shard count of 500 localized onto one server, it's much more manageable for that one server to handle 300 out of 500 than 6, 7, 800 out of 1,000, if that makes sense. And you have a much higher, you've got a lot more overhead for the replication layer. Now, all this doesn't, it stops being a problem with dynamic server meshing, but that's not what we're getting with 4.0. It's just a static configuration that looks like this. So as soon as the first client logs in, they filled up a previous shard, it's got 500 people or whatever, and then the 500 first person logs in. Well, now they need to spin up another shard, and they're going to spin up all the servers that they need, and the replication and everything for a shard for one stinking person. And so then they'll start filling up that shard. But even when concurrency goes down due to time of day or whatever, and this shard that had a population of nearly 500 at max concurrency is now down to 180, it's still going to have the same amount of servers. They can't dial them back with static server meshing. So if they have a configuration with more servers with a higher player count, and then that shard number goes down, that shard population goes down at 3 a.m. U.S. time, and now you only have 150 people on a shard with 6 servers. That's a ton of wasted server capacity. It's more inefficient and more costly for CIG for no benefit. It doesn't benefit them. But we're doing these tests because these tests identify where the optimizations are in these colored things moving back and forth, and the replication layer's ability to process these things going back and forth and send them out, and to make this more resilient and not crash. Sorry, tangent, but it's important to understand.
It also means the more people they can put into a single shard, the more beneficial it will be.
Yeah. Eventually, it's
server capacity wise.
Yeah, and that's going to be really, and that's why people think that this is just testing for 4.0 and static. It's like no. This is all data they're going to use for dynamic server meshing. They're not going to stop. 4.0 is going to launch. They might take a short break, and they're going to be going balls to the wall to get everything ready to start doing tech preview tests for dynamic server meshing.
Yeah, a quote that I'm pretty sure fades away pretty quickly. One of the devs, I think it was at CitizenCon. I don't know where to link you guys to go see it again. But one of the server devs said straight out they would rather not do static server meshing.
Yep.
They would rather go back into their office and work on dynamic and launch dynamic, and that's what they would like to do. But there's a reason they have to do static.
They need what they're doing right now to be done at live to let us fuck it up at live player counts and live performance.
I think Benoit said it, but Benoit said it for the entire server team.
Yeah.
Or for other devs in the server team. Who was it? Tomato? Was it Tomato that did the interview? I don't remember. Yeah, they would really much rather not, and they're very close as far as the tech is concerned, going from static to dynamic 1. So, I wonder, I don't know if anyone actually knows what their plans are as far as too many people in one area.
I don't think they have plans. I think they're gonna figure it out when they get there.
Because even if 100 people go to the same location, it's still bad performance. So I think they're just gonna work on server cap and kind of not care and let the teams over the next year update their stuff so we have better character performance. But I don't know if there's a real plan for optimizing. There's no real mechanisms that they talk to or that we know of to stop people from congregating.
Yeah.
So even if we had a what live is now, 100-person cap, if those 100 people get together, it's still bad performance, whether they bring ships or not.
And that's the it right now what they're doing, the server meshing will allow a single server to handle a lot more people in that server's area of responsibility, but only to a certain
Sure, on the
extent.
server side, but
Yeah,
like,
but then and the client side part of it is, optimizations for the art teams, art, lighting, and all that stuff, because that is part of it, in UI. But then also we still don't have multi-threading parallelization with Vulkan. And so that will make a difference in client side performance in terms of being able to render higher player counts. God dang it, another bot. I don't want cheap viewers. I want high quality viewers like Cindy Sanderson. Because but even so, even with that, optimizing art, optimizing the render,
yeah,
the render, there is a number, and they have talked about. They haven't talked about. They have said there are ways and there are things that we can do in order to not hard limit, but reduce the incidence
likelihood.
of, reduce the instance of that happening. It'll still happen. It'll cause, crashes at worst. It'll cause poor performance at best, but it won't, they CIG has said that they won't hard limit, saying no, once you come in, they won't stop you from the trams. We can't have 500 people at IAE at the expo center. So once we get to 500 people in the expo center, we're going to stop the trams, at hard limit, and wait for people to come off. Like they're not going to put bouncers at Wally's bar or
They
something.
should they should definitely wow, for dynamic they should definitely make the event center its own server.
Well,
And
and with instancing, they can
exactly,
not
and
only,
also instancing.
they can do a mix of both. But that's
Hmm.
the with dynamic, they can subdivide and,
They can subdivide
and
each
the way,
floor.
they can subdivide a lot in order to optimize, especially with just spinning up more replication layers and more servers. But they can still only do it to a certain point, because the limiting, a certain server, a single server can only handle so many physics calculations, and a replication layer can only handle so many connected clients in terms of data throughput. But
Hmm.
that number will go up substantially from what it was, and so it will mean that you can have a shard count of many, many thousands, because the likelihood of, you know 600 to 1,000 people congregating in a very small area is going to, just, as the universe grows, the likelihood
Yeah,
of that happening is going to be very, very small. And
and
then
and
for
with
areas
dynamic,
where,
that goes way up too, because
Mhm.
like it'll be able to know, like, hey, sure, an event's going on, IE's going on, but we have, let's just say 7 systems. And by the time the first people have been in Stanton when it started, they're going to be done looking at IE by the time the people, from Seoul get over to Stanton to go visit the expo center.
Yeah.
So you're going to be able to have theoretical millions of people on a single shard.
Hmm. Yeah, it's just that's part of the building the massive game universe. But then, even so, like, we talked about this, how, people don't like trams, and they are going to optimize trams and the transit and all that stuff. But, the for places where there's a lot of entity counts in landing zones, and big places of interest, they can easily subdivide those, and they already have with transit. You can only
Mm.
move so many people on a tram from one entity zone to another, and essentially, when those entity zones become their own servers, or even their own clusters of servers with its own replication layer, it's a piece of cake for the, replication layer that manages the, 6 servers at the spaceport, for the main lobby and everything else around it, to then hand off, people one tram at a time to the commons and its 6 servers in one replication layer. You could have thousands of people in New Babbage, but because they're all on little islands that are connected by trams and elevators, it makes it very easy for CIG to manage it. And if you have a large space battle,
Not to
well,
mention
it's out in empty
with
space.
that with yeah, not to mention with that whole scenario with all the islands and Babbage, building interiors is another layer on top of that.
Yeah.
We're not so those islands get even dispersed even more across the entire city in their own there goes the word, the containers, object containers.
Hmm.
So the likelihood of even people in the same city being in the same object container gets even less apparent.
Yeah.
Somebody had mentioned IE will have satellite locations in the verse. That's actually a great idea because, like, what if it's in Terra and Sol? Like, if you're in
Yeah.
any of the Terra or Sol, if you're in Terra and it's in Sol, like that's a
We
good
get to
like
see one
several
of the satellite
hours of
locations.
travel.
There's multiple satellite locations, and the main IAE is still at Severus, or it's Airy City, I think it is, on
Oh, that's
Severus
already a
in the Keel
thing.
system. Yeah, yeah, it's already a thing.
Oh, okay.
But yeah. Oh, and we actually there's a couple of these quotes that are important to talk about that because a couple of the critiques that people have about
Mhm.
the high player counts and everything, Benoit kind of hints
Mhm.
at. So why don't you keep reading and we'll get onto those.
So, sorry, I'm still on the last thing. So, going to the origin point of IE is more like a once in a lifetime thing. You go to that once and then you
Think of it
survive
as
on the
like
satellite.
Citizen Con has satellite locations, for like the Bar Citizen events are satellite events for Citizen Con, and you maybe make the trip to Citizen Con once every few years. The real
Nice.
Citizen Con.
That'll be cool. That'll be really
Hmm.
cool. And then they can easily instance the main event, yeah,
Oh yeah,
instead of everything. Very nice, very nice. All right, very cool. Now let's
I
get
think you
to
were
the
on
second
the
option.
yeah the
Yeah, I hadn't finished the 500 one. So any crash in the hybrid and high concurrent prevented the test from being more valuable or testing at even higher counts. The crash did not happen at lower numbers, 500. This is the focus of the next test. So the next test is this crash. Confirmed some
yeah.
stalls were still occurring on large streaming batches, most likely responsible for some teleport slash warping seen with many players in the same spot. Observe some
So
players
when
getting
they say
damage.
large streaming batches, they're saying that a bunch of players in the same area, all moving around, they're sending their updates to the replication layer, and the replication layer sends those updates out in batches. And if the replication layer takes all these updates from 10 people, 20 people, or whatever in an area, and sends them all out at once, it doesn't like that, and so they're gonna those are further optimizations that they're gonna have to do in order to smooth that process out, so it isn't so much big shotgun blasted data.
CCHG breaking the quantum computer barrier. The quantum computer barrier has already been broken, but also quantum computing is not normal computing. It's not something that anything we're doing now on a computer. That's not what quantum computing does. It does a completely different job. It's more like it's kind of the difference between a computer and a car. A car is not going to do what a computer does. A computer does not do what a car does. Same thing with quantum computing to a computer. It's just not the same thing. They just aren't going to do the same job.
And they wouldn't call it quantum computing, they would call it Atlas computer now, or
Oh my
something,
god.
or the
No, 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 no more
it,
Alice's.
or
No.
or they would call it star computing.
Dark.
Star.
Yeah. Um to observe some players getting damage from the reported teleports, especially when many players are close to each other, like in trams or elevators. Most ping times and round trips were much more stable, even at higher player counts, which is what something you where'd that word go? Said.
Hmm.
There's a word for that. Starts with an A. Crap. Anecdoted earlier. Um,
Oh,
Congregation on Hab and hangars were still congestion on habs and hangars was still egregious, especially for hangar elevators. Want to keep going?
Yeah, you can finish it off.
All right. The test was scaled back
Fucking
to 4 servers, 500 players, and left over running for 8 hours. We saw full trams in very densely populated areas, spaceport, etc. It was really great to see the world come alive while it lasted. We hope the next test will allow us to benefit from the optimizations for a longer period, aka leaving it at 1,000 players for longer. See you all in test E, which should be sometime this week. Hopefully.
I did talk to Jake, and Jake said that they would be communicating with us soon, and that the community team was letting Balt and Wikipedia handle the announcements and Wintermute the announcements, because they've been doing such a good job, and it was better for us to get it from them directly. So I hope to hear from them soon. I unfortunately, if they do have a test this week, I won't be able to participate because I work on Thursday and Friday, unfortunately. But hopefully I'll be able to spy while I'm at work. But yeah, so they said this is the focus of the next test for that crash. They did say that they identified what it was, and they already know how to fix it, so they'll be working on that. So I went through, and so you can search Spectrum, and you can search by replies, by original posts, by chat messages. And so I looked for all of Benoit, Balt, CIG's chat messages surrounding the date of the test, and I pulled up a few of the key ones to give some more context regarding this test. So the first one, and I put them in chronological order from the start of the test going later. So at 2:34 p.m. on the day of the test, we definitely want to know, and this is when the crashes started to happen. But so they were aware of it, and so Benoit says we definitely want to know if the crash happens at lower concurrencies too, the 4 server 500 player concurrency, just revising our game plan at the moment. So then at 2:40, he says, "Okay, guys, we're going back to a 4 server 500 client setup for the time being. This crash has too many reproductions to make it useful to go higher." So it was happening too often, that or at a rate that it was not useful to try and test higher, just because they were able to get the information they needed from that test. And it wasn't, they weren't expecting it to get better at higher player counts. So we'll cancel going to higher numbers for tonight, because they had originally said if things hold up, we'll just keep going up and see how it goes, because they need to find the upper limits for the replication layer. That's a big part of what this is, not for static server meshing, but really for dynamic server meshing. Once we're back down, our goal is to confirm that if the crash frequency goes down as well or not. And it did go down. It was like essentially non-existent. So 2:41, so a minute later, overall performance looked a lot better, but we had time to take very useful captures for even more optimizations. So they saw that even with the crashes at 6 servers and 1,000 people, the crashes didn't start immediately. It took some time. And so they are able to see that their optimizations gave them the performance that they were looking for from them over test C. They were able to do sort of intermittent captures of performance data to be like, oh yeah, this worked. This did what we wanted to. We're really happy with it. But it also highlighted some more areas for optimization, which is what he was talking about here with the teleports and getting damage, and then still a few stalls with large streaming batches. So what they'll probably do is when players are congregating together, is that they will do some sort of way of not so much queuing those large batches, but maybe it is a sort of queuing, but breaking them up into more manageable bits, so that it sort of automates the process. When you have a whole bunch of players in an area, it doesn't send the data in as big of a batch and causing stalls and teleporting. They'll send it more incrementally in order, and what criteria they use for that, I don't know, but this is where we're going to see optimizations going forward, or a big part of it. Yeah, so very useful captures for even more optimizations. So it was a great experience for me. It was great to see performance that good, but the fact that they've got even more optimizations already planned at 2:41 p.m. They've already identified things and they know how to further optimize it is incredible. 2:47. So this was in response to someone highlighting something that's been mentioned before by content creators like Morphologists. So I'll scroll up to it. Let's see. It was Remag. I saw it earlier when I was pulling these up. So Remag says, Balt, okay, but with 4 starting points to choose from, the 4 landing zones, you're guaranteed a minimum of like 200 to 300 players per starting point. That's at the 1K configuration. That's why they're not going to start at 1K, because the game can't handle it. This is surely why the servers are crashing and overloading. No, it's probably not, but the association does not equal causation. Needs to be dynamic or more starting points evenly spread out. Well, they can't add more starting points. And they're not going to make it so that way you can spawn at stations just for 4.0 or static server meshing. They'll limit the player count to 500, because if there's 500 people, if you have 500 people max for a shard and everybody's starting in Stanton at the 4 landing zones, that's, breaks down evenly to about 125 per landing zone. But there's, I think it was high dozens, not quite 100 habs at each apartment complex in the landing zones. So even if everybody logged in all at once, all they have to do is, which that isn't how it works. People, log in batches, but as long as people don't all, everybody doesn't loiter in their habs, which they don't. Everybody starts mad dash to get to the spaceport. You're not going to. You would only have to implement a very small queue to account for that with a 500 player for the 500 player cap. And that's, even across Stanton and Pyro, that's, even if you average it out, that's still 2.5 times what our cap is right now in Stanton. That's a huge difference, and that's only 500.
There's several stuff that's going to fix that. One, we have very few times when we're going to reset everything from now to full or 1.0.
That's only an issue when the patch first launches. That's it. It stops being an issue after that.
After 1.0, this will no longer be a thing. 1.1 will not have all your items reset, will not have all your respawns reset. This is only like a now to 1.0 thing. After that, somebody buys the game 5 years down the road, they spawn in, everyone who's been there for 5+ years will be out in the verse.
We just need stairs.
There.
Yeah.
I would love stairs. And also, that's another
Elevators are too fast. We need stairs.
Like, building interiors is a big thing for kind of smoothing out that kind of thing.
Well, and the other thing is,
because it makes
and
more
people might not like it for immersion purposes, but they can instance the apartment built. I forget what they like Aspire Grand and what are the other ones? We have Aspire Grand,
L19,
L19 at Arcor,
and Green Circle.
The name. Yeah, they can instance all of those, and they can even instance it so you can be in the same hab as someone else and have the same view out the window.
Yeah, you can literally be in the same physical location without being in the same digital location.
Yep. Yeah. But so Balt replies to that. Remag, oh, for sure. The spawn point situation is temporary and a bit artificial with this test. It's artificial because as long as they don't go to 1,000 players, it's not a problem. It's a non-issue. And everybody's like, oh, well, why wouldn't they go to 1,000 players? We need 1,000 players. We don't need 1,000 players for 4.0. We need 1,000+ players and a lot more than that for dynamic server meshing. Dynamic server meshing is where we get high player counts, not static server meshing. Static server meshing is a short bump in the road on the way to dynamic. Now, will they have to address this on the way to dynamic? Absolutely. The instancing we talked about, having more star systems for people to start out at, how all that will work, or and if they can implement dynamic server meshing without a reset, so you don't start off in your hab, then it's again a non-issue. Yeah. I don't know if we're gonna get a wipe. Maybe some sort of wipe. The only reason I kind of want a partial wipe is I want to remake my character for my Zero to Hero. I've got an idea of how I want them to look, and I accidentally started them with the character that Buster made for me, Buster the Destroyer, which looks like
you can
me.
edit your character though, right?
You can.
Yeah.
I did not know this.
When you go to main menu, go to Persistent Universe. At the bottom will be a character customizer button.
Well, never mind. Problem solved.
You learn something new every day.
Well, so like I got kind of what I'm going for. I was playing around with it. Was that today or yesterday?
There is plenty that we both don't know. We try hard, but there's always going to be something we don't know.
Well, and so like I have a very detailed high level view of the game's development. There's so much gameplay stuff that I'm not familiar with because I get lots of time to read about Star Citizen. Because I can do it at work during my downtime and stuff and rewatch videos and everything. I don't get to play Star Citizen as much as I'd like.
Yeah.
I still play
Which
frequently.
is where I kind of come in.
Yeah. I'm constantly asking Naz what you guys would think are stupid questions. Because I'm like, my study Star Citizen to play Star Citizen ratio is way out of whack. But so he says it's artificial with this test. Because it's artificially inflated because the player count is so high, but it's also temporary. Because whether they do instancing or whether it's temporary, because eventually we're gonna have dynamic server meshing in the not too distant future. Well, so that gets me very excited though, because I like when 3.24.2 went to PTU, or when it went to Wave 2, sorry, I was able to get in. And I played around with the character creator because of the new tattoos and piercings and stuff, because that's what I was waiting for to make my Zero to Hero character, because my Zero to Hero character is like 21 years old and a bit edgy from growing up in the mean streets of Lorville and stuff. And so I was playing around with it. I wanted to have him look a bit edgy, but like trying too hard and still have that sort of innocent looking baby face, And I got what I liked. But then I forgot to save it, and I was like, oh, no.
Oh, no.
But it's on the character. But now I know that if I can go in there and just reopen it in the character customizer, I should be able to save it so that way I can upload it to my live character.
Yeah, absolutely can. Yep.
You
can open that thing.
Blizzrad, I wasn't streaming. How did you know? Of course I have a tattoo that says mom. I have to... I'm sending my
I was really so I had an org event right before the stream, and I had forgot that I built your mom character, and so I ended up playing the entire event as your mom.
Oh my gosh! Did you send that to me in our chat? Where did that go? I want to pull that.
That's in your Discord.
Oh,
that's Fortree.
Did I pin it?
There's Fortree.
Okay, I'll find it later. So there's a joke here. So yeah, I had Naz. My character's mom lives on Area 18. She's stricken with an incurable but treatable illness. Hey, Dibley, good to see you. Thanks for joining us this evening. Hope you're doing well. But this is something I'm going to bring out to the community. I'll ask you guys now. Start getting feedback, but I want to have a goal, or a goal of how much money do I need to send my uncle and my mom. My mom lives with my uncle on Area 18 every month in order to provide for her medical care, in order to keep her alive. And I'm going to send that money to my main account. That way my main account doesn't have to work so hard to make money. I can just goof off with it. But I'll wire it in there. And so I want to do it once a month in game, where I meet up with Naz at the hospital at Area 18, to get a screenshot of my character, saying hi to his mom when she goes in for her treatment, and we don't have to record it or anything, but I'll post it in my Discord, be like, here I am, sending, coming here to help pay for mom's health care. We did it this month, folks. Mom gets to live another month. Hooray.
And if we can't do it any specific month, we'll have to do just a face call. What are they called? The in-game face calls.
Mm-hmm. Oh my God, that'd be even funnier. Because that works really well in 3.2.4.2. I watched, oh gosh, what content creator did
they
a video
updated the
on
whole
it.
render texture system. They did a whole poll.
Yeah, it's very good. Like, oh man, that would be... This is going to be funny.
Perfect. Yeah, and it needs
wait.
to be an amount that is like hard to get. Like you can't just do like a stream session. So like I don't know, like 4 hours.
Oh yeah, no, I want it to be a challenge, and I want my character to struggle at first until I can save up enough money to get a Cutlass Black and start doing higher paying jobs and get more rep and everything. Like I want it to be difficult, so that way like it's I have to work at it, and then in a few months time I've got a Cuddy Black and more reputation, higher paying jobs, and it's a little bit easier. I've got a little bit more breathing room, and maybe in stream I'm like, well, I've already sent my money to mom. I'm going to treat myself. Let's go get pizza. Like obviously that'll be a year from now.
100K a week.
100K a week. This is a dystopia.
A month.
Yeah. With how much I get to play, I don't know if that's possible, but
yeah, it's got to be reasonable but also difficult.
Mm-hmm.
So
continue on. Balt at 3:35 along with Wikipedia. This is where they said, hey, we're going to leave the tech preview up at 4 servers with 500 clients, 500 players up until morning Austin time for you guys to play. A lot of great data. We confirmed our optimization worked and saw great performance at 1K. So again, they confirmed that the optimizations that they did, and they told us that they were very confident beforehand that these were going to work, and saw great performance at 1K. But we have another crash to chase at higher numbers, which they identified the crash and they know how to fix it. We'll prepare another build with fixes and optimizations like they talked about. So they already identified even more optimizations. So this next test should have this crash that occurred at 1,000 players addressed, and we should have even better performance over what we experienced, which is already very impressive. And then the last message came from Waka the next morning. Somebody had asked when the next test would be, and he said most likely next week, but not scheduled yet. Balt and team analyzing everything, and will definitely have some great updates for the next one. So after what Balt said regarding the optimizations before this test, and they were saying this during this test about the next test that would probably be this week. Like, I am very hyped and very excited for this next test, and we are this close to having a very strong candidate. And I think, and we'll get to why this is even more encouraging here really quick, but the server meshing tests have gone really well these last few rounds, and they're making really awesome rapid progress. And so to reiterate that, Roger Godfrey, who you may recognize, he was in the ISC about server meshing at the beginning of 2022, lead producer, Core Tech Group, Cloud Imperium Games. So Core Tech Group, the people who work on the technology, including server meshing, said, and this is during the test. This is only 30 minutes after, Waka and Benoit were saying all this stuff. I don't want to say too much without having a really good chat with the engineers. This is his initial response to seeing them, their reactions to it. But we don't usually have that level of excitement at CIG without Jaffa cakes being involved. And this is over in the UK, so I don't know what a Jaffa cake is, but I want to try it. But this, along with what Waka and especially Benoit was saying, it's incredibly encouraging regarding the progress and server meshing working. And so, if you've got some naysayers, in your circle, like show them the show notes, pull up the things, and let them know what we've been talking about, because we're there, we're there. So the last thing that came up, and this caused a whole bunch of unnecessary hype, but for me it this should be hype, but people are hyping about it for the wrong reasons. And so CIG, RSI, Star Citizen, posted this today, this morning. Connie Aquila. So Akane Kayla getting ready to go through a jump point, and everybody's like, "Oh, it looks different than the pyro one." No, it's just a pyro jump point, folks. It just what we've seen before was work in progress. They've got different art. Maybe it's from a different angle, but that's the pyro jump point. But how they said New Frontiers at the end, and so everybody's like, "Oh, it's a different jump point. We're getting they've been secretly working on Nyx or whatever," and it's like, no, no, they have not. But what this tells us, New Frontiers and everything, that we're getting very close to testing 4.0. And here we are in This Week in Star Citizen, posted this afternoon. On the Alpha 4.0 front, the team is making solid progress and is looking forward to releasing to Evocati. More news on that later. We're probably going to hear about it this week. New Frontiers await what was just shown in Pyro, and we can't wait to take the jump with you. So 4.0 going to Evocati is very soon, and it makes sense given how encouraging these server meshing tests are. The fact that 3.24.2 is on the 4.0 code branch, and that engineering has been getting tested in Arena Commander for a lot longer than they originally planned, but still really good for 4.0. So yeah, very encouraging stuff. I don't know about you, Naz, but I fully expect to see 4.0 go to Evo by CitizenCon.
Oh yeah, no, that's absolutely. I expect before CitizenCon 3.242 to be either live or open PTU. And I expect 4.0 and Evo till CitizenCon and wider after CitizenCon as we roll out through the wave system to get to a live build by the end of the year. Well, by as soon as possible to get to hopefully a IAE 4.0.1. But if we can't get tested that fast, we have the fallback of still on the 4.0 branch. 3.24 can be added on to for IAE.
Yeah, we could have a 3.24.3 for IAE, which continues to test the 4.0 branch with really high concurrency, while 4.0 is making its way through PTU, and would get even more concurrency, because if they had it like an open PTU during IAE during free fly, everybody's going to hop on that. But I think that they're pushing really hard for 4.0 by IAE. If you remember, we showed it off in the last show. Yogi said that they don't, something to the tune of, they don't intend for 3.24.2 to be up for very long.
Yeah. But they are also making sure they don't have bottlenecks like 3.2.4 happened, where it pushed 4.0. It was way too long in development. They have the fallback of IAE on 3.2.4, but they also are trying to get 4.0 done. So they've got their checks and balances this time in the row.
And they've been doing everything they can to shorten that testing cycle, which is really encouraging because of how smart their strategy is right now.
They learned a lot over the past few years, and it is really cool to see. And I also don't think they can release the Polaris not on 4.0.
Yeah,
Well, now
that's
that
the
we're
thing.
on 3242, it is 40. So me.
Yeah.
Because my kind of theory, kind of tinfoil hat theory, is the Polaris is only been built. The only model, the only game asset they have for the Polaris is built on resource management,
Yeah, and
and
that's
they would have
the
to do more dev work to remove it and make it still function.
and
Like a lot of the shit we have now were built and then updated to it, so we have those two different models. And the Polaris doesn't have that legacy edition,
yeah,
so it
it's
won't
built with
work
the
unless
resource
we have it.
network from the ground up.
Yeah.
And I think that's part, they're pushing for 4.0 just to get it out in general, but I think that's part of it. I think that by having 3.2.4.2 on the 4.0 code branch, it gives them a fallback because I think that they could put engineering on a 3.2.4.3 for IAE and it could work. But I think that's not what they're going for. That's like their backup plan because then they could release the pillars. Because if you remember what, here, I don't remember the exact verbiage that John Cruz said at Invictus Launch Week. He said that the Polaris is coming out at IAE, and then Jared said, well, what if 4.0 isn't out by IAE? He's like, it's coming out by IAE, and so I think that they have a backup plan. I don't think the Polaris, I agree with you, it will not come out without resource management, without engineering. I think they have a backup plan, which is part of the reason, to speed up the development and testing of 4.0 by, with 3.2.4.2 using the code branch, but B, to also have that code branch established and ready as a backup plan to put engineering into place to allow them to release the Polaris and not have to eat crow. And then everybody, and the crazy thing is I had somebody in my comments from the previous podcast on YouTube actually upset that they moved MFDs from 4.0. They're just going to move, take more features from 4.0. And it's like, you mean release those features when they're ready? Why is it bad that they didn't hold a feature back from release? Because the patch it was originally aiming for was delayed. Like, what kind of argument is that? And of course, they didn't reply. And it's like, yeah, you moron. How is that a bad thing?
It was Blizzard on your Discord. It said, "Back's early access game. Game develops. Player gets angry."
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Like what?
But so, and this is my other tinfoil hat. I think with 3.2.4.2, we're going to see, because we talked about this in the last show, how they're pushing so hard for radar and scanning. And I don't mean just FPS or just vehicle, both. It's a holistic system. They're being built together. They've been pushing hard. They said in May they wanted to get a not tech preview, but what's it called where they test it in Arena Commander? Experimental mode. They wanted to get an experimental mode for it out before in the patch before 4.0. This was in May. And then in August, they reiterated that they were already testing it in Arena Commander. So they are probably going to release that in Arena Commander for us to test before it's released in the next major patch for it. So even if 4.0 is delayed to December, it can come out with a big feature, and that could be radar and scanning for vehicles and FPS, which is huge. Like, that's a big time feature, and that helps the promises from CitizenCon. Yeah, fake outrage for the sake of outrage. Getting it's like that's where you're going to move that goalpost to. You think that's a good defendable position for that goalpost? Okay.
Dell said there's going to be a lot of solo Polarises out there, only for a second, because all they can do is pilot, and they're not like,
you're going to be real bored.
Can't do anything. They're gonna be targets.
Why is the turret on the nose below the nose not pilot controlled? Shut the fuck.
Like, it's going to cost a heck ton of money for the fuel, and you're just going to be a target. So you just won't. You're just going to pull it out of port and get shot. Like,
yeah, especially confused. I don't want to captain my Polaris either. You will find me in the med bay. I am Bones.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So we got our medical officer. I'll do captain. I'm sure I can scram together some engineers and gunners from my org. We'll get this done.
Before we move on to the monthly reports, I just have to call out this. So this was from This Week in Star Citizen. They always post a screenshot that somebody submitted. This is the new flight suit, right? This is the new flight suit and everything that is coming out for CitizenCon, isn't it?
Is that the? I swear it didn't have
I
the
thought it was.
arm bracelets.
Whatever it is, this is a great shot.
It's a great shot for sure.
I mean, that's sexy. Even though that ass is flat. Is that the Nomad? I can't. My eyes are deceiving me.
That is
Or
Saber?
maybe it's a Saber. The nose is weird to me. Those arms are Artemix. Okay, it's an Artemix. I haven't seen Artemix in that color. Oh, I want
those
that
gold
now.
bands are Artemix.
I have not seen Artemix in that color. I need. Oh my. Sorry, mommy's gonna have to go without her cancer treatment. Daddy's getting new clothes.
That's terrible.
One of the new sabers. Oh, that makes sense. Okay, thank you.
But
the standard Artemix set? I have never seen Artemix in that color.
No, it's there. They have 3 colors at least. Dark blue is one of them.
Either way, I do want the new flight suit because the new flight suit is sexy.
Those pants are getting me though. I don't know what those pants are. Yeah, so it's definitely not the new flight suit.
Yeah. Well, it's the suit with the pants and everything. Like, I like the materials.
Yeah.
The way that, and then you've got I think that's a cool looking combo to me.
It's weird I don't see the legs to the saber. It is definitely a saber.
The suit with the fur.
Suit with the fur. Yeah.
See, and I've never flown a saber.
Because I know that the top is the marine one. It's the green heavy marine.
Is it? It does kind of look like it from the back because I'm used to seeing the.
Well,
but I don't know if anything else has that look.
Yeah, it's the only thing with that big collar behind the head thing.
Okay. It's a neck brace, so if you fall down, there's inflatable things that pop out in here to keep your head from bobbing around.
Now we just need to get the space coder in here because he has the armory, which shows everything, so he should know all the items, right?
Oh, speaking of the space coder, hold on, we're on Twitter.
We're on Twitter.
Let's see.
Yes, it is still called Twitter. Until we are banned from using it.
In this house, it's called Twitter, okay?
Exactly.
We'll
harken back to a better day. Until we are banned because we still call it Twitter. Let's see.
Here we go.
Open that.
Look what the space coder is working on. It's a cargo, routing thing.
Oh, very cool.
Yeah.
I probably saw that, and I probably already forgot about it.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure I reposted it, but yeah.
I'm sure you did.
Yeah, I'm excited. All right, so I'm going to switch screens back to the other thing, and then we'll get ready to launch into the monthly reports. But before we do, I'm going to run and use the restroom. That was my last beer. All I have is water.
No. Well, I'm going to go get some water.
Okay, I'm going to switch screens and I'll pull up everything, and then we'll get into the monthly reports in just a second. But I got to use the bathroom. I forgot to put in my catheter,